Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cynthia the Audio Belle. This summer, my husband Jeremy and I went to visit our friends at Endow Audio, David Strunk, and his family. David is a speaker designer, and he is only 32 years old. The question is David gearing up to be the Bill Gates of the audio world? After driving over 800 miles to Chatanooga, Tennessee, I got to see how an Endow Bravura 7 Generation 2 bookshelf speaker is built. I even got to install the mid-range drivers. In addition to getting to spend a good few hours watching David build speakers, we all decided to go whitewater rafting to beat the heat. Jeremy and I had never been whitewater rafting before, and David's family suggested that we give it a try. After watching some videos of Class 5 rapids, we were not really sure what we were getting into. We ended up conquering Class 3 and Class 4 rapids on the Ocoee River, and we didn't even fall out of the raft. The original goal was to interview David at Expona this year, but he unexpectedly had to leave early. So Jeremy and I decided it would be fun to take a road trip and bring the interview to him. If you caught my Expona 2023 video show report, you might recall me mentioning that David's family is just super down to earth. David's dad, Tim, has been a huge part of helping David to realize his dream as an entrepreneur. He took a huge leap, moved from Kentucky down to Tennessee for college, and has settled into Chatanooga, where he builds speakers when he is not in class. Even while juggling all these things, he still makes time to take his speakers to trade shows. He actually got his start at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest 2019 at the young age of 29. David is a very talented young man, and the purpose of this video is to give everyone a glimpse into the future of high-end audio. This building is called the INCubator. It's a really neat building that was built in the 20s. The building's website says that it housed 3M in the 50s and later became an incubator for different startup businesses. When I visited, I saw various different businesses from candle makers to a robotics company, and I heard that the building was used to manufacture ceramic back during the World War II efforts. This is where David makes his speakers. The elevator had to be the coolest elevator I've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cynthia the Audio Belle, and I'm here with David Strunk of Endow Audio. David?
Hi.
All right, David, what do you do at Endow Audio?
I guess I wear many hats. I do everything from 3D printing to speaker design and construction, building each unit right now. I build them all by hand.
So you build speakers, you design speakers. How old are you?
I'm 32.
You're 32. When did you get started with all of this?
I got started, it all began when I was 13.
Okay.
And I guess we can start from the beginning.
All right, start from the beginning.
Okay. So I have over there my very first speaker driver.
Oh.
And it was really interesting because when I was young, my dad used to take me to Radio Shack for different things. Mm-hmm. And I really liked Radio Shack. There was all kinds of things in there I liked, but I noticed there was something in there that was kind of expensive, but I wanted it. And so when I turned 13 on my 13th birthday, I was visiting my grandmother, and she said, David, I'll take you to any store, and we can go anywhere you want, and you can buy anything you want that's less than $50. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I know exactly where I want to go. I want to go to Radio Shack. So she said, okay, so took me to Radio Shack, and I looked around, and I saw something I'd seen before, and I said, that's what I want. And it was 2 speaker drivers for like car audio that they had just as a replacement. And so as a 13-year-old, I was like, yeah, that's what I want.
What made you want a speaker driver at age 13?
Yeah, good question. So I was always really fascinated with speakers. My grandmother had like a stereo set that I was really enamored with. Mm-hmm. And I was just always drawn to audio. Even when I was really young, maybe 2 or 3, I would like to push the play button and the pause button on my mom's CD player. Apparently, I got really excited about that, she says. Just play and pause. Yeah, that's great. I can make the music start and stop.
That's funny.
You know, just a little tiny tot. I think I remember I bought a coaxial, like full range driver with like well, it wasn't coaxial. It had a whizzer cone. So it was full range, and I bought a woofer. And I was really excited about the woofer because I thought my grandmother's old speakers didn't have as very much bass. And so I was like, yeah.
You thought they didn't have bass?
Yeah, because they were so old. Yeah, at 13, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I got for my birthday present. When I took it out of the box and connected, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have so much bass. This is a woofer. This is awesome. And I was so heartbroken. There was no bass at all. I wasn't even sure it was working right because it was just a driver just sitting in the air. And so, of course, the sound power just canceled itself out.
So they got your gears turning?
Yeah, so I was like, why isn't this working? I was at her house, and my parents were gone. I was just with her, and she didn't know anything about, speakers, electronics, so I couldn't ask her that kind of question. And I didn't have access to the internet either. So I was just kind of sitting there to my own thoughts, thinking like, why this woofer didn't give me this amazing bass. And I remember thinking like, well, these have boxes, and this doesn't have a box. So maybe speakers have to have a box. And that was just a thought I had. I didn't know why, but I just saw the difference, and I was like, maybe it has to have a box. And I was like, how can I get a box? I was like, making a box is hard. But then I was like, oh, it came with a box. I'll just put it in its box.
Just put it back in the box it came in?
Yeah, so I poked holes.
Oh, that's cool.
In the box, like a speaker grill. And I cut out a little triangle, and I had this little, like, binding post thing that I put in with like proper speaker wire and everything. So I like put it in its box. It was a little bit better. I was like, okay, that's not quite right, but it's a little bit better.
How did you come to the conclusion that you're going to go to Radio Shack and get something that had bass? Like, how did you even know in the first place what to do?
I guess I didn't. I was just drawn to this fascinating thing, the speaker. I'd known that I liked speakers at that point, I guess, just from playing around with sets that existed. But I was always really hands-on, and I loved tinkering with things and learning how things work, and I loved taking things apart. By that age, I had already taken apart so many different electronic things, to see how they work, take apart computers, and that sort of thing.
So what happened after you had you put the woofer in the box, and it wasn't quite up to your expectations? It was a little bit better. Your grandma thought it was cool.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
So after that, I was really fascinated, and I felt a passion for this sort of thing and pursuing even better sound. I guess really in the beginning, it was all about pursuing better sound. Before I even got the driver, I wanted better bass. And then when I discovered it didn't work, I wanted to make it better. And then when it kind of worked, I wanted to make it even better. So I was like, yeah, Grandmother, this is awesome. Like, I want more. So she actually took me to a flea market.
Oh, wow.
A local flea market. And we walked around, and she was like, maybe we can find something here. She would go to flea markets, and she was like, I've seen speaker stuff there before, so let's go and see what we can find. So we went, and we found some speaker stuff. We found a horn driver, a mid-range driver. We found some crossovers, like pre-made crossovers that were just designed for like DIY speakers. And I remember taking all this home, and my dad was an electrical engineer, so he told me, like, David, you can't just hook all these speakers up to this in parallel, because it'll have too low of impedance and it'll fry your stereo. And he said, but you have these crossover circuits, so they filter out the frequencies, so they allow you to connect them all at once. And I was like, oh, I can connect them all? He was like, yeah.
Did you understand it yet? Like how crossovers worked by that point?
He kind of explained it to me. I didn't fully understand it. I had a 3-way crossover and a 2-way crossover, and I could connect them so the low frequencies would go to the woofer, and the mids and then the highs. I understood that. I didn't really understand how capacitors and inductors worked at that point. By this time, I was probably like 14. So to my receiver, I connected some of my parents' old speakers. I connected all of my random drivers all to this crossover, and I literally had speakers all around my room.
How many did you connect to this?
I don't remember. It was like a dozen or so.
A dozen?
It was around a dozen.
You made just an array of drivers?
Yeah, it was just random things. I had like a random horn driver, like just a random interface. I had a little speaker that I took out of a computer.
What did that sound like?
Well, individually, the drivers were just individual drivers. It would have sounded horrible. But since I connected them all up to the crossover, and since there were so many and spread all around, it actually created really interesting, immersive, like sound field. Nothing like audiophile, nothing proper at all. But it was very huge, and it was very immersive, and I loved it.
How long did you listen to that before you moved on to something different?
I loved that for a long time.
Do you still have it?
I still have some of the parts, yes. Yeah, I still have
funny.
some of the parts, some of the more precious ones.
So what kind of music do you like, I guess?
Yeah.
That'd be my next question.
Yeah, I like a lot of different music. I tend to listen to actually a very wide range, from electronic music all the way to soundtracks, and, because I don't want to like pigeonhole myself into one thing and optimize it just for that, and then, someone else can't enjoy that kind of music just because this is my preference, I like to try to cover all the bases especially when I'm like designing and voicing. When I'm voicing, I like to listen to everything whenever possible.
What does it mean to voice something?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's really an art form, and you really just have to listen and make small changes, and as you go, make an improvement and change something. Listen, make a judgment, an educated guess based on experience, and maybe it's wrong. Maybe you have to go back and change something else. But what you're doing is you're just slowly making changes so that the speaker sounds the way that you want for certain qualities.
After those drivers that you hooked all up together, what'd you do next as far as creations and stuff? Did you have like a hiatus of not creating anything, or did you move on to something else?
Yeah, after a while, I definitely got into just reading so much all the time about audio, just on the internet, just absorbing all of the information that I could. I turned that into passion projects of DIY, literally designing speakers, DIY speakers, just from my own knowledge that I had acquired.
What was your first one? Was it like a cone speaker, or what did you have?
From the house that we built, I installed in-ceiling speakers. I really wanted in-ceiling speakers.
Like infinite baffle, or?
Yeah, infinite baffle. They're full range, just in-ceiling speakers, and it had a distributed audio system. And we started the house project when I was 13, and we finished when I was 16.
And your dad and you built your house.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we built the house, and I convinced him to spend way too much money on this distributed audio system, and I was really excited to install in-ceiling speakers in pretty much every room, even the bathrooms, which is way overkill. We definitely never used it all.
Kind of like nowadays where they have the Sonos systems, and you could just put like Alexa in every room and connect her up to like your bathroom or your bedroom or your living room or your kitchen.
So true. That's a way better system. Yeah, this is 2006, like predating all that.
But you were doing stuff like that back then. I mean, not like to the same extent where we have AI and different things that are smart home related, but you wanted sound in every room?
I did. I wanted sound in every room, and somehow I convinced them to let me do it in almost every room. It was way too much money, but I had so much fun, and we ended up buying some extra ones. And so I guess my first speaker project was I actually took apart those in-ceiling speakers, and I just took the drivers and made a little box, and I made a DIY speaker out of those in-ceiling speakers. It actually turned out really well.
Wow. Okay.
I took, I think, 2 per speaker, and I bought a Bollinger Gray Bear planar tweeter and combined it with the in-ceiling speakers and designed my own crossover. And it was it turned out really interesting. Yeah, it it was one of those DIY things where it's not quite right the first time you do it, so you end up tweaking it endlessly. So that was a good experience. But
how did you design the crossover?
I think back then I just used a textbook crossover calculator.
Uh-huh.
It was really rudimentary and just sort of guessing the values. I didn't have way back then a measurement microphone or anything like that. So
it was just kind of like going based off of the textbook and
going based on the textbook and then listening to it and realizing, well, that's not right.
So fast forward to today, I guess between then and now, how did you have this idea specifically?
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution. continuous.
The point array.
Yeah, the point array.
What's a point array?
Point array is, it's an array of drivers.
Uh-huh.
The origin concept is to emulate and get closer to the mathematical definition of a point source, which is a point infinitely small in space, radiating all directions.
Okay.
And I'd known that that was the mathematical definition from all my reading on the internet. But from what I'd read and what I've observed, the speakers that I'd seen hadn't come close to that. Sound is actually four-dimensional. It radiates in 3 dimensions, and it carries with it pressure information, which is analogous to a 4th dimension. And I'd read about a really cool project that someone had done where they, maybe it was a concept, and they hadn't done it. I think it was a concept, and they had just dreamed it up. But it was basically a cage, a ball, and they would engulf it in either, I think, plasma, and they would somehow pulse it, so the ball would expand and contract. Plasma ball, the fireball, and so they were doing that so that they could get closer to that perfect point source.
Is it the plasma tweeter you're thinking of, or?
Yes, there is a plasma tweeter. I think those are related, but this was a full range driver.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it would have to be fairly large. So yeah, I don't think anyone ever built it, but yeah, I was enamored by that concept.
Just a brief interruption, esteemed viewers. As you may know, I'm Tom Martin, Chief Content Officer of The Absolute Sound. We have a new product. It's on the Substack platform, and we're going to do some interesting things with Substack. First of which is reader questions and answers. Each Monday, readers will submit questions. We'll pick the most interesting ones and we'll answer the questions on Friday. We'll also have early access to articles and special blogs that don't appear anywhere else. We hope you'll join us. It's only a cost of a cup of coffee per month. Just check on the screen or in the show notes below. Thanks, and now back to the show.
So you saw this idea and that they were trying to come up with, and then that led to having an array of, like, a fan of different drivers, or?
Yeah. So when I first started doing DIY, of course, I didn't know I would eventually design the point array. I'd always had that idea of the plasma ball, in the back of my mind. When I started playing with small transducers, I started arranging them in different geometries just to see how things would go. I didn't really have a clear end goal. It was just a passion hobby. I was just having the time of my life, really. I had a concept that I had come up with, and I wanted to expand on it. And so my dad bought me a 3D printer. When was that? 2000. I'm not sure. Yeah, 2015. So I would have been, mid-20s.
Mid-20s, okay.
Yeah.
So mid-20s, your dad got you a 3D printer.
Yeah.
And you had what concept at that point? You had just looked at the plasma stuff, and then you had an idea for point array.
Yes, I'd had the plasma in my mind for years at that point. And I didn't know how to pursue it, but I was enamored with that. I thought that would be the coolest thing if I could somehow one day make a speaker that was that much closer to the mathematical perfection. I actually had an idea for a line array. I was really interested in arrays, and the line arrays I thought were really cool. And so I wanted to 3D print slightly different geometries to get that better subjective sound experience. So I started 3D printing different manifolds for these drivers to mount them to in different configurations. And I started with just a line array, and I would tweak the geometries, and it was kind of like voicing, where you just change one thing and listen to it, and maybe it's better, and you keep going that direction, or maybe it's worse, and you don't do that.
And you're like, no,
yeah,
we're not going to go that way.
It's like, no, that wasn't right. I think we need to go this way, And so as I started doing that, I started noticing this sound quality that I was really interested in. I was like, wow, that's really special. What I experienced was not very strong, but I was like, I think I can pursue this. If I could bring this sound quality out, I think that would be really special. I kept just making iterations after iterations, designing, and eventually I got really good at CAD and really good at 3D printing. And I made hundreds, if not thousands, of prototypes.
So what was your first prototype? Like, what did that look like?
The very first one I made, it was just a straight line array. I guess not only did I hear a sound quality that I liked with more complicated geometrical arrangements, but I also heard a sound quality that I didn't like when all of the drivers were just on a flat plane. So like single planar arrangements. But I noticed that when you started dispersing the sound, it changed it. And sometimes it was not in a good way. Sometimes it was interesting. What I sort of attribute that to now is actually an increase in power response. Now that I have a more technical understanding and I've come a long way, I realized that there's a correlation with the sound quality I like and the power response of a speaker. And so once I made that realization, it was very straightforward to maximize the power response.
If you knew then what you know now.
Yeah.
Because you put a lot of time into developing this concept.
Untold time, yeah.
So it started with the line array, and then you learned more about power response. And then at what point did you, I guess, transition from doing line arrays to doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, it was a very, very slow evolution that happened over the whole course of time. So one prototype iteration at a time.
So what was that groundbreaking, I guess, point or prototype? Oh, at what point did you end up changing it to where, I mean, the first thing I've seen is the FS301 that looks like it has the brain on the front, and it's like shooting sound in a whole bunch of different directions. And now we're at the Bravuras, and they have, little mid-range drivers all around it, almost like a fan of sound.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess the FS301 is the first one you took to a trade show, Rocky Mountain Audio Fest 2019. And I think this is the first one you went to, right? First trade show?
Yeah.
So at what point did you arrive at that conclusion that that was where you needed to be as far as like the speaker design?
Okay. Well, we started with a straight line array, and I started iterating on designs that had drivers at slightly different angles.
Okay.
So one of the first things I did was instead of a straight line, a single row of drivers, I made 2 rows next to each other, the same amount of drivers, which is
but in 2 rows.
In 2 rows. Then I slightly tilted the top 2 backwards and the bottom 2 backwards, so that it was kind of arched like that.
But why?
Because it had a sound quality that I locked onto.
You were just playing with it and you heard something.
Yeah, I heard something. Well, first of all, there was a sound quality that repelled me, which was all the drivers on a flat plane. I heard like this quality that I didn't like. It sounded congested. It didn't sound real. It sounded like it was coming from a speaker. The quality of sound in reality, it was different than what I was hearing in speakers. I heard this flat plane sound that I didn't like. And so if I added geometry to it, I heard it become more breathable, more effortless, more natural. So I was like, oh, this is great. So I kept experimenting with different angles, different geometries. I made some very compound angle things where, instead of just angling 2, so that's 1, 2, 3 planes, I would then slightly angle them all so that none of them were on a single plane, and they were all different.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it created very complex designs, and I eventually morphed, those designs, all the way to the FS301, one prototype at a time. And then with the FS301, it created a very huge, ambient, very even sound. It didn't have the precise imaging in the center and the sweet spot that people were looking for. We actually isolated the advantage of that geometry to just one ring. The FS301 had what we called 3 positions. So it had one driver that was facing you on the traditional front plane, and then it had one ring of 4 drivers that was angled kind of 45 to that.
Okay.
And then it had another ring of 4 more drivers beyond that, and that was more or less angled 90 degrees. But then since they were all on a hemisphere, all 9, was it 9? Oh, yeah.
I think it was 9.
It was 9, yeah. All 9 drivers, they all had unique planes relative to each other. And so that increased the power response, and that gave that quality that I really was pursuing, rather than just them all on a plane.
Of immersion.
Yeah, of immersion, and yeah, really immersion.
But customers were more so looking for the sweet spot as well.
Yeah,
the best
customers
of both worlds.
were looking for that sweet spot. So we actually isolated the benefit to coming really just from one ring. So we brought it down from the 4 to 1, and we positioned them all continuously. In the FS301, they were kind of broken up. The second ring was kind of here and here, and the fourth was here and here. So now we have one continuous ring, and then concentrically with that, we have a tweeter. So all of the drivers still are on their own discrete planes. However, there's another plane that intersects them all, and that plane is perpendicular with the listener. So now all drivers are the same distance from the listener. That allows the time alignment of all the drivers to be the same.
Okay.
So not only can I align everything with a crossover to get flat frequency response, but now you also get really nice imaging as well.
So what's been the response from the critics as far as, have they liked it better since you made the change, or?
Definitely, definitely. I don't want to be too colorful with be like, oh yeah, we blew everyone's mind. But
well, I mean, like, it was originally what you wanted was a more immersive experience, right? You wanted stuff bouncing off the walls and just kind of immersing you, almost as if you're listening to a giant pair of headphones, how I would imagine it.
That's right.
But you listened to your customer base and you said, okay, we're going to tailor it more towards high-end audio and audiophiles.
Yeah, audiophiles and that imaging that audiophiles love. And, going back to my grandmother's stereo set that imaged well, I was always enamored with imaging. So that was always something that I was drawn to as well. And when I was able to combine the power response and the immersion and that unique planar geometry sound quality that I loved, when I was able to combine that with imaging, that traditional soundstage that I also loved, it was just like the best of both worlds.
What made you think this was going to work? I mean, the whole idea and concept of changing the geometry when you're going from line source to moving stuff up and down, what was going through your head there to have that idea?
I guess it was kind of a mad scientist thing. I never really thought it would work necessarily.
Frankenstein.
I was just trying, and I
wanted just like, I wonder what happens if I point this driver.
It was curiosity. It was curiosity and a passion that I had. I never thought, oh yes, I will make the point source, or oh yes, I will make the pointer array. I never thought
right.
That. Yeah.
It's like, that's not going to go through your head. You have no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea how it would turn out. But I was chasing a sound quality that I wanted, and I was running from a sound quality I didn't want. So I just kept pursuing my passion.
Just through trial and error, and then you came up with this.
That's right.
How many patents did you have to get to make all of this come about?
Well, last time we checked, we had 5.
5
patents.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of patents are they?
Patents on the geometry and combining drivers in a ring, really to cover the point array aspect of it.
Okay.
The horn, the shape of the horn, the shape of the phase plug, and all that is really important. But things that are too generic and too established, we can't get patents on. Like, we can never patent a horn.
Right.
Because everyone's done that every way conceivable since 100 years,
But you could patent the shape of the horn.
I don't think we could. I have not made any new shapes of horns.
Okay.
So the shape that we have of the horn is a conical horn.
Okay. So the mid-range drivers.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The horn in the middle is really, it's not necessarily unique, but the placement, the geometry, the arrangement, and of course the ring on the outside. That's all the patentable stuff.
So why is the shape important, the shape of the horn?
Yes, every single piece of geometry is absolutely critical, and it's all intentional. The outside in the front and the back acts as phase plugs, so it's a type of waveguide, and it prevents cancellations from occurring when sound wave would travel directly across.
Okay.
So it increases the distance that energy has to go.
So less likely to cancel out.
Yes, exactly. It reduces those cancellations and it makes the frequency smoother. Along with making the frequency measurably smoother, it also increases the sound quality as well, right along with that measurement. The smoother you can get that measurement, better it will sound.
That's probably why I heard a little bit more girth in some of the female voices that like I wouldn't hear normally. Just some of those female voices that have multiple frequencies as far as harmonics that play.
Yeah.
It sounded really good.
Yeah.
I've been learning more about different inventors and interviewing different people who invent stuff, and I find it really fascinating. But I'm like, I don't even know how you'd get started doing something like that.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's all taken care of by attorneys and lawyers. Or maybe not attorneys.
Know somebody that was a patent attorney, or?
Yeah, attorney might not be the right word, but lawyers. I'm involved a little bit with that. Like I have to generate drawings that go in it and like a description. But thankfully, most of the work is actually handled by them. Yeah, they have to review the world, literally, of patents and see what's already out there and what's not patentable. And that's why they're so expensive, because they have to do all this groundwork. And so that's our team that files for the patent, and then the patent office goes and does the same thing. They check every single patent out there to see if it's patentable. So they don't want to award a patent that conflicts with another patent.
Right.
That would be a disaster.
When did you get your first patent?
We applied for the first patent actually before the first show.
Okay, so back in like 2019, 2018, around then.
That's right.
Wow, so young.
Yeah.
And you're an inventor.
Yeah.
Well, so, okay, I guess that's a good question. What kind of advice would you offer somebody else that's young and that wants to get into doing something ingenuitive or being an entrepreneur like yourself?
Well, do you want to get real, or do you
Yeah, let's get
want
real.
the fluffy answer?
No, I don't want the fluffy answer. I want the real deal.
Oh, okay.
You just tell me the dirt, whatever it is.
Okay. Well, businessmen that I look up to, I've heard say that starting a business is like eating glass and looking into the abyss. And I think that's really true.
I mean, I could see that.
Yeah, it's really true. It's not an exaggeration. So if you do want to pursue that, definitely be prepared mentally. I think, I'm not sure if the statistic is only 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 or something like that, but most startups actually fail. So if you do go into it,
I could see it.
you have to be emotionally prepared for that. And failure is okay. Failure is a learning experience. It's actually much better to fail quickly than to drag it out and fail slowly. So you really want to not be afraid of failure. And if you feel like you can't face failure, then
it's probably not the right thing for you.
Not the right thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have failures on your journey?
Well, I would say we've had a lot of failures. Yeah. I think failure is the best teacher. And you learn from it and you move on.
Learn to handle failure is what I'm getting from your feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. It's tough.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain to everybody kind of how your speaker making process works? From like the 3D printing all the way to the assembling.
Start to finish. Where to start?
Well, what do you start on? Like if you're making a Bravura 7, what's the first thing you do?
What is the first thing? I don't know. In my mind, it's kind of just like this continuous like thing that I'm always doing. So it's like, where do I start? I don't know. It's like I'm always doing something. I suppose the logical start, if you had to categorize a linear progression.
A flow chart.
Yeah, a flow chart. Yeah, let's put it in a flow chart. I guess the first step would be to 3D print the point array on top.
Okay.
And trying to make sure this is true. Yeah, that's all the 3D printing that we do.
So you have a front and a back that you...
Yeah, we don't 3D print anything else. Wow.
Well, you 3D print a lot of gadgets that help you with your job too.
Yeah, we 3D print so much stuff. And I've thought about 3D printing other various things as well, but really 3D printing is actually expensive. It's very expensive. So the less you can 3D print realistically, better. And actually the point array on top is pretty much a necessity to 3D print because it's so complicated. And it would be essentially impossible almost to actually make it some other way. Like you could perhaps injection mold it, but it would be very, very complicated cast.
Because of just how many layers there are.
Yeah, the mold would be so complicated, have a lot of moving parts. And you would have to change actually a lot in a very major way in order to get it moldable. So we really wanted to focus on the sound quality and optimize it the way that we wanted for that purpose. And we didn't want to let the production means hold us back from that. But we had to get the best quality possible because it's a high-end speaker, and you don't want some cheap 3D print, in your living room. We started with just off-the-shelf commercial industrial machines. And
you said that you had a 3D printer at one point the size of a washing machine?
Yes, it was bigger than a washing machine.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it sure was. And it was a really industrial, very robust machine, very expensive, but it didn't deliver the aesthetic quality that we really demanded.
You ended up building your own 3D printer
We
because
did. That's where we're
result.
going. But it wasn't we just bought a printer and then we were like, oh well, that's not working, so let's build our own.
Right.
I ended up working with that printer, trying to milk out the quality for 3 years, doing everything from software to hardware, changes, tweaks. I got so much experience doing that. I got to the point where I was like, well, I think I would actually trust my skills to build a printer from scratch more than a commercial one off the shelf. If I build it from scratch, I'll know exactly how to optimize it from the experience that I have, what I need to achieve that quality. Whereas if I buy a commercial printer off the shelf, who knows what that'll be and who knows how you could improve it if you need to.
Right.
It would be less effort just to build it. So that's what we did. We built one from scratch from the Voron design team. We saw that performance, and we added upgrades to the point where we could get the quality that we wanted.
And the result looks so smooth. Like the design and the front and the back of the speaker just look really sleek.
Yeah.
It almost looks like there's no mistakes.
Right. Well, that was our goal. No mistakes was our goal. That I think, oh gosh, I don't want to say that I've done as much work on 3D printing as speakers, but it kind of feels like it.
So you start with the 3D printing and you print the front and the back of this capsule, so to speak, that goes on top of the woofer.
That's right. Yeah, so the cabinet is just for the woofer. It's the airspace for the woofer. And then on top, the interior of that point array actually is the airspace for the mid-range drivers. And it acts also as the phase plug waveguide for the ring as well as the horn for the tweeter. So every piece of geometry is critical and necessary.
You start off 3D printing the front and the back, and how long does that take?
The back piece takes a day to 3D print, and the front piece takes 2 days.
Okay, so it takes a little bit of time, but it's really intricate. So how is everything else done?
So we source our cabinets from another manufacturer, and we source the drivers. All the drivers in the Bravura 7.2 come from Wavecore, and the woofers in the 12.2 come from Morel.
And then you just put it all together?
Yeah, and then we assemble it. We have the crossovers that we designed. So what we're doing now is we're taking off the high part. So this is the low pass for the woofer, and this is the high pass for the mid-range. But then the high and the low pass for the tweeter in the mid-range, we actually move up here. So that's why these capacitors are hanging down.
I saw that face.
Yeah, there's a little piece of styrofoam stuck in that crack. Never happened before.
Well, nothing that an engineer can't fix.
That's right. With a knife. Get out of there. Cynthia doesn't want to see that.
What?
The little piece of styrofoam.
I don't want to see the styrofoam?
Yeah.
It's stuck in there.
Oh, I see it. I
He's
see
a
it.
perfectionist.
That's
Yep.
right. It has to be
Not one
perfect.
piece.
Okay, well, if you're being a perfectionist, I did notice there's some, like, bumps right here.
No! Don't grill a 3D print!